Anna, let's take a look at your new set of essays. We've got the job application, so let's see what you said. Dear Mr. Green, I'm writing in response to the advert for a full-time pâtissier commis position on the job bulletin board inside the company posted July 20th, 2022. I am Anna May Montesillo, a part-time commis at Pastry Kitchen. I would like to apply for the said position since I graduated culinary arts at the Le Cordon Bleu last month. As an aspiring pâtissier, securing a full-time position would be a stepping stone for my longer career journey. Moreover, I have a 2 years training lineup, which varies from sugar pulling showpiece, chocolate showpiece making, and also fondant showpiece in the nearby countries. This would be beneficial to the company. Not to mention my past experiences, which I believe have been beneficial to the company, as shown by my 6 months work performance. Please see the attached curriculum vitae for further information. I am looking forward to hearing from you. Since, kind regards. Okay. All right, let's talk about this. On the whole, I liked it. On the whole, I thought it was good. The language that was related to a job application was good. Where I had a little trouble, and I want to read it again, is when you started talking about more jargon, more terminology related to your field. So that's what I want to look at a little bit. I thought this was good. This was fine. This I thought was a little awkward. So I would like to apply for the said position since I graduated. You don't graduate culinary arts. I mean, you graduate with a culinary arts degree or a culinary arts certificate or something. So this was a little strange. Okay. And then this was lovely. I like that line a lot. And then this was a little awkward. This whole thing was a little confusing to me. So what does this mean, a training lineup? That was confusing. So I have a 2 year, because this is an adjective here, so it should be no S. But I didn't really understand what this meant. What does it mean, a 2 year training lineup? Okay, that's where I wasn't sure if this was terminology related to your position and it's appropriate, or if it was something you were trying to say in English but were having trouble with. So that's where I was a little concerned. And then I didn't really know if, even in terms of jargon, it's okay for this to be in the singular. So are you saying that your lineup not really varies, but maybe you're saying that your training covers sugar pulling showpieces? I'm wondering if this should be in the plural, basically. Okay, and then I didn't like this, in the nearby countries. The whole thing felt awkward to me. The other thing that I didn't really like was this. You said this would be beneficial. This has been beneficial. Okay, it's repetitive. So in a letter that is so short, you need to do a little more with your vocabulary. All right. So, right, like I said, I thought this was a little awkward, even if it was jargon. I think you were trying to say something else. Unfortunately, because there is so much terminology, I can't really make a suggestion on how it should be. Maybe you can explain to me what you were trying to say. And then, we can make some suggestions from there. All right. Then, so here you have this clause here. This would be beneficial to the company. Fine. But then I didn't like this not to mention. Because it's not a full sentence, basically. It's a fragment. You have this, which I believe have been beneficial, but this part of the sentence is not a full sentence because there's no verb. All right. Not to mention isn't a verb here. So you're saying here that you've got this 2 year experience. And then all you needed to say here was additionally, or maybe you could have also said, I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to kind of in a sophisticated way say that you have more experience. Okay, that in addition to this, I have more job experience that I think is relevant and that would be utilized by the company. Okay, something like that. I think this is what you're trying to say. So let's see if we can do it a little more fluidly. So let's see. This would be beneficial to the company. How about this? Just simple, clean. I should also mention that I have further work experience, um, which I have been utilizing at the company. And I am certain, yeah, it's a little vague. I mean, what does this mean, past experiences? Can you be a little more specific? So, or how about, you know what? Why don't we do this? Prior to this, I was working as an assistant patissier for several years, and this experience has allowed me to, I don't know, what's the word I want? I want a verb. This experience has allowed me to grow within the company in the short time I have been there. Okay. So you could have said something like that. Let's see. However, what I really want to say, look at this. It says, why would it be beneficial? And then what are your future goals? You said it would be a stepping stone. Okay. What could you have said apart from that? How could you have developed this a little further? All right. So, as an aspiring patissier, securing a full-time position would be a stepping stone for my longer career journey. Okay, great. And then you could have continued. I ultimately hope to be a senior patissier, or I hope to grow within the company and rise up the career ladder within this firm. All right. So something else. Remember, you're supposed to develop each one of these. Okay. Why you want to apply, what your future goals are, and why it would be beneficial. So here, this thing about being beneficial, like I said, you use this expression twice. So my suggestion would be to not put these in separate paragraphs, but to put these in one paragraph. And then let's clean it up a little bit. So rather than just talking about what you've done in the past, which is necessary, of course, you need to also say how all of this experience you have benefits them. So you could say that my experience in the nearby countries A, B, and C have allowed me to learn new techniques that I will continue to apply at your firm. Okay, so show how it's beneficial. All right. So rather than just saying it'll be beneficial, show them how. Okay? I hope this makes sense. Now, I didn't really love this. I don't know what's going on here since kind regards. I think maybe you meant sincerely. But what you need to do is just pick something. Kind regards feels maybe a little less formal. Maybe you could have just said instead, yours sincerely, and that would have been absolutely fine. All right, so on the whole, I liked this, but looking at it more carefully, there were areas that I thought you could have improved upon. So again, maybe developing a couple of those bullets a little more. So the why it would be beneficial, tell them why. All right. And when you said, your longer career journey, maybe you could have talked about that. One more sentence that I hope to rise in the ranks in your firm and ultimately become senior patissier. Okay, that would have, just showing that you're not just answering it, but you're developing the bullet. This is important. All right. Um, and one last thing, this didn't need to be its own paragraph. It could have just belonged here. All right. Paragraphing is not super important in task one, but when you are trying to get into those higher levels, 7, 8, 9, they do pay attention to it. So try to use better paragraphing. In other words, not a one sentence paragraph. There's really no need. So try to attach it. I think it would have gone best here. Okay. So that's what I had to say. And again, here too, you could have made these one paragraph. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about your workplace and communication All right, let's see. Community spread transmission. What? Okay. So you're starting off with pandemic vocabulary. Let's see what you said. Community spread, transmission, and asymptomatically are some of the largest challenges to any government and its citizens during the pandemic. That is why the government demands to avoid physical contact, one of which is face to face meeting. This essay will consider both views using examples from the Singapore economy and a scenario demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay. So you took this completely from the perspective of the pandemic. Um, Look at what happens though. When I read this, if I don't have the essay question in front of me, I have no way of knowing what this question is. One of the signs of a good introduction is that when I read the introduction, I should be able more or less to tell you what the question was. Okay, that's how appropriate and accurate your rephrasing should be. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. You did have some interesting vocabulary. Okay, transmission, community spread, great. But this is not really what this essay is asking you to talk about. Okay, can you mention the pandemic? Yeah, and in fact, most people do. At some point, they say, "Oh, yeah, these online meetings were so helpful during lockdowns and during the pandemic and so forth." Um, but again, I would like to see something which more closely responds to the task and paraphrases it. Okay. And then, of course, there's some grammatical stuff that we have to talk about here. First of all, community spread, noun, transmission, noun, and this is an adverb, and that doesn't work. Okay. You could have said, and asymptomatic carriers. Grammatically, that would have worked. Okay. Now here you needed some sort of conjunction, and that is why the government demands who? Demands we avoid physical contact, one of which is face-to-face meetings, plural. And then here, both views. There wasn't a second view. Okay? There was just one view. The government demands this, done. So this again is not accurate. Okay? And this is why I say again that this whole thing doesn't really accurately portray the question. So, all right, let's talk about what you could have done instead. You could have said something like, with the increase in technology over the last few decades, workers are using online methods of communication more than traditional in-person meetings. While this carries with it some disadvantages, on the whole, I believe it is beneficial. Okay, so that's all you really need to do here. That's all you need to do. Present the topic and then just say your opinion. So here you say that you're going to consider both views, but you never told us what your answer is to this question. Remember that your answer to this is your position, and it really needs to be clear from the beginning of your essay. It needs to be clear throughout. So as I read this essay, I should know what your position is. Let's continue. There is ample evidence that opting to employees work at home. No. There is ample evidence that employees opting to work at home is beneficial not only to the numerous companies and their employees, but also to the environment and to the economy. The central reason behind this is fourfold. Okay, you don't need to go into 4 reasons, Anna. 2 are enough. When you go into 4 reasons, you're not going to develop them enough. Okay, so while I appreciate your effort to, really prove your point, you'll prove it better by giving 2 reasons that are fully developed rather than 4 reasons that are very possibly going to end up sounding like a list. So be careful with that. Firstly, remote working setting. I don't understand this. Remote working boosts office workers' mental health, not by 2 folds. No, boosts office workers' mental health, full stop. That is because they have good long sleep, they are at the comfort of their own home, and also they can perform their work at their own pace. Secondly, this provides less demand for office space, which results in companies having more funds to allocate. As a result, all right, you can't put this here, just get rid of that. Thirdly, remote working reduces 60% of the global CO2 footprint due to less commuters and electricity used by big corporations. Lastly, due to employees performing well and competitive salaries with extra funds to allocate. What's going on with your grammar here? No, let's get rid of due to. Lastly, employees perform well. I don't know what's going on with your grammar here, Anna. I really don't understand what this sentence is trying to say. I think let me see. Okay. Due to employees performing well and competitive companies with extra funds to allocate, revenues rise. I'm not really sure. There's so much information in the sentence. I really can't fix it, I'm afraid. You need to break it down into smaller pieces and show us how things are linked together. But this is confusing, I'm afraid. Therefore, it's exclusively clear that remote working is beneficial on different levels. Now that we've finished the paragraph, let's talk about where there are problems here. This essay is not just about remote working. It's not just about working from home. It's about the fact that around the world, we don't meet with our colleagues all the time to talk about things. Instead, we email. Instead, we have online meetings. Okay. So that's what this is about. It says online communication. It doesn't say remotely. Okay. So what do I mean? I mean, I can be in my office and my colleague can be in the next office, and yet we will email each other rather than go to each other's desks. That's what this essay is about. Okay. Not just about remote work. So what you've done here is you've really limited the scope of what this essay is talking about. All right. So let's continue. And plus, there were those grammar problems that make it difficult. So I want you to look at that a little bit. Okay. All right. And again, remember, be careful with the lists. No fourfold, just twofold, and that's enough. All right. But whatever you say about that twofold has to be fully developed. Although there are cases of hacking, unstable connections, and even disrupting meetings by surroundings, it is surprising that the majority of the corporate world continues with this practice despite its vulnerability, which cannot overstate the public safety from pandemic where relapse can occur without any notice. All right. Again, you got to be careful with this. I really appreciate your effort to make these advanced grammatical sentences. That's great. You're taking risks and that's important, but this is not working. It's too much information and it's not accurate. Okay. So, I also don't really understand this. You're trying to link this with this. So this was basically talking about how wonderful remote working is. So what you really want to do here is you want to attach that. So although there are cases, all right, again, why are you talking about I'm reading this quickly. All right, you know what? I don't want to talk about this right now. I actually want to see how you develop the paragraph. For example, if everything is normalized and an asymptomatic patient starts the community spread, the majority would be jeopardized. No, the health of the majority would be jeopardized, and also job security, because there are small companies that are unsustainable due to the financial crisis. There are reasons why online communications are prevalent, and there is no practical reason why it has to be stopped. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that cyber meetings should not be replaced or limited by face-to-face meetings for the sake of general safety. So here you're basically talking about why face-to-face meetings are dangerous and why we shouldn't have them and how dangerous community spread is. Uh, that's not exactly what you're supposed to talk about. Okay. So look at this again. It says online communication is now more common. Advantages of this. You talked about them in the first paragraph. And then the disadvantages of this. But the disadvantages of what? Not the disadvantages of face to face meetings. The disadvantages of the fact that nowadays we have more online communication than we do face to face meetings. What are the disadvantages of this trend and this shift towards online communication? Okay, that's what this is supposed to be focused on. I also would have preferred if this wasn't so health related and so like pandemic related. Okay, fine. Of course, like I said, lots of people mention it, but it's supposed to be in a more general sense. All right. But I definitely feel like some of this was tangential and you weren't really talking about what you were supposed to be talking about. You are talking about online meetings, online communication, and yeah, there was a comparison to face meetings. But here you were supposed to be talking about the disadvantages. You mentioned them here, but that's not enough. And this wasn't really appropriate here. What you should have done instead is you should have talked about although there are definite benefits to online communication, such as ABC, there are some disadvantages which cannot be overstated. For example, um, we lose social interaction with people. Working with people is not just about getting a job done, but it's also about the relationships colleagues create with each other. And so a lot of times those relationships created through face-to-face communication, through face-to-face meetings, being in the same room with somebody. Okay. So those are the things you needed to talk about here. All right, so let's look at your conclusion. To conclude the arguments, to conclude from the arguments and examples given, comma, I firmly believe that cyber communication is beneficial from several levels, full stop. It is predicted that remote jobs will increasingly grow in demand. Okay, fine. Again, this wasn't about remote jobs. This was about, in general, online communication. All right. You limited it to online jobs, which, as I already said, is not what you want to do. So there's a lot to work on here. Okay. Understanding the topic, developing it appropriately, and having more precise and accurate sentences. Okay, so go ahead, work on it, and we'll meet back here. Good luck.